Welcome to our third Team USA postgame live show presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365 from the 2026 Milan Games. I'm Jonny Lazarus, joined by Hradek from the NHL Network. Everyone should know who he is, someone I enjoy talking hockey with. Very excited to talk to you about that 5-1 win over Germany. first thing right off the bat, how nice was it to see Auston Matthews smile? That's what I took away from that game.
It is good. It really is good to see him smile. I mean, I don't know. And as I've watched things unfold, you wonder, because I was a proponent of him being the captain of the Leafs. I mean, all his peers end up being the captain, and it starts to become a thing. But when you watch him, some guys aren't necessarily suited for that role, and they still can be terrific players. And I wasn't so sure how this is going to work out for him with Team USA because there's been a lot of talk about Brady Tkachuk and other players. I mean, I might have picked Charlie McAvoy. I mean, we could go on and on and on, right? But at the end of the day, all these guys are going to have to contribute, and they're all going to have to lead in their own way. And Auston Matthews is certainly near the top of the list, if not at the top of it. And good to see him smile. Good to see him get a couple of goals today. I think that we all pick apart his game so much, probably too much. Yeah. But he ended up with a couple today, and, we'll see where it goes from here. But I'm really happy for him.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. And I do agree with you. Charlie McAvoy, if I were to pick the captain going into this tournament, he would have been my pick as well.
Yeah.
But Matthews, I think the game he had today, too, at the moment that he had it, the third game in the preliminary round, now they're going to go to the quarterfinals, to have like a deep breath, right? Because we need him to be our best player. So I don't want to put all the focus on Matthews, but the timing of this game couldn't have felt more perfect for number 34.
Well, you need him to score goals, right? I mean, because, whether he's the best player, we could go through all kinds of discussion about all the good players on this team, right? He needs a goal scorer, and he needs to score goals. And if you go back to the Four Nations last year, Johnny, right, he had moments in overtime and in parts of those games. And it's really hard for me. It almost seems like he's snake bitten in some ways because he gets these great chances and then Binnington stops him or he hits the post. And I've seen that happen in different games at different parts of his career. It's hard to explain, but the bottom line is he is a goal scorer. He's a darn good one, and one of the very, very best since he came into the league, if not the best. And so, he needs to score goals. Got a couple today. Hopefully that carries forward for him.
And you see the stats right there, thanks to our producer, Vic. Auston Matthews today with 2 goals and an assist for 3 points, 15 minutes, 17 seconds of ice time, 3 shots on goal, and he had no goals in the entire Four Nations tournament like EJ was just talking about. So good to see him get on the score sheet. But for Team USA, EJ, this is now a larger conversation. I think, I don't know what you were saying leading in, but I know I was saying they're going to breeze through this. The 3 opponents in Latvia, Denmark, and Germany are not the strongest. And despite what the scores say, I wouldn't say that they breezed through it. The scoreboard, if you look at it, might say, they had an easy time. But yesterday's game was a little bit of a sweat. Today's game, while the score was 5-1, it wasn't the easiest 5-1 win. Is that a good thing for Team USA that they didn't breeze through it? Or, did you expect more dominance?
I think it's good. Well, I did. I mean, I think we have high expectations for both Team USA and Team Canada when you look at the depth and the rosters that they both have. I agree with you. I didn't think it was the strongest pool. In fact, I thought it was the weakest pool. And I did think they would win maybe by larger margins. But it just goes to show you that the games are played on the ice. And, Team USA is trying to come together. I think also these guys understand, yes, it's for seeding, but nobody's eliminated in these first 3 games. So it's important to do well. And I think Team USA at the end of the day, they did really what they were supposed to do. They won all 3 games. They won by a good enough margin. I guess they finished plus 11. Canada was plus 17. They're just going to end up in the first seed. And the problem for Team USA isn't so much the way they've played. The challenge now will be that they're likely going to play Sweden, who I think, when I look on paper, probably have the 3rd best roster of players. So that will not be an easy game if indeed we get there. I'm old enough to have been around in 2002 when Belarus beat Sweden and screwed up that whole tournament at the in Salt Lake. So strange things can happen. We've seen that already in this tournament. But for Team USA, I think they've done everything they've had to do. I think they're getting a little better as they've gone along. Hellebuck has played well in goal. Everybody has stayed healthy for the most part. the guys who we expect to carry the load on defense. I think the defense is really the key thing for Team USA, especially as we get into the games that are really going to be the difference makers, is those guys' ability to move the puck quickly out of their zone, to break up plays and to be impactful in the neutral zone and to keep plays alive in the offensive zone. It's really, to me, the strength of their team. So we'll see where it goes, but I would just say, it wasn't 10-0, but the bottom line is they've done what they needed to do. They have the number 2 seed. They wait now most likely for Sweden in the quarterfinal.
The defense I'm happy you brought up, because that's been one of my biggest takeaways. And I know it's somewhat of a big talking point, but having the chance to watch Quinn Hughes now 3 games in a row, and I've tried to watch more Minnesota Wild games with him being on Minnesota, but you really do – you kind of wonder what would this have looked like last year if he was at Four Nations, right? Like, he was so good today. That goal that Auston Matthews scores, his first goal, Quinn wasn't actually even shooting to score. It looked like he was trying to shoot it off Matthews as a backboard, and he makes that play on Werenski's first goal where he attacks in the corner and he's aggressive as the point man, which frees up Matthews to make that cross-team pass. Like, Quinn Hughes is just so fun to watch. But, I mean, what can you say about his impact for Team USA?
Well, he's a brilliant, brilliant player. I mean, for me, fortunately, Johnny, I became really good friends with Bruce Boudreau over at the NHL Network, one of my colleagues.
We love him.
Prior to him, there's nothing not to love. The thing about Bruce is he loves hockey and he's just authentic. He is who he is. And his whole life is just full of hockey. If he could, every day, he wants to be doing something with hockey. But the thing is that I became friendly with him. He got the job in Vancouver, so I would stay up late and watch those games night after night after night as the Canucks tried to push back into it. And they didn't have near as good a roster as they would have a couple of years later when Rick Tocchet came in and they had a really good year. But watching Quinn night after night and having seen him at the junior level, I already knew this, but that's just what happens when people get to watch a guy, and really focus on him, because the Canucks didn't make up any playoff runs, right? So he wasn't someone that you saw in the postseason. Like, we've seen Cale Makar quite a bit. He's been a Stanley Cup winner. He is a great player. For me, it's still the same. I haven't changed my thinking. Makar is at number 1. Quinn Hughes is a slight bit behind him at 2. And then the guy that's moving up is Werenski. He's getting close into that mix as well, for me.
Yeah, I agree.
At the end of the day, Quinn Hughes is just a great player. And as people see him more, they'll have the same reaction you have. He's a brilliant player.
So, EJ, we have a live chat going right now, and I want to read off a couple of comments in the chat and hear what you have to think. One of them, the first one, this is from John Harbaugh season. I feel like USA plays individually way too much. And I'm going to add on to that a little bit. I do feel while they are 3-0, I don't think they've played nearly their best. And that could be a little bit scary that they haven't found that yet before the quarterfinal. Do you feel the same, or do you think that certain guys are stepping up at certain moments and that's kind of what you need in this tournament?
I think we've seen a little of that for sure. Guys have stepped up in certain moments. I think it's good that they haven't played their best so far, right? Because they haven't needed to play their best so far. They're going to need to play their best if they play Sweden or whoever they play moving forward. It's a knockout game. So if Latvia were to surprise Sweden, you better play damn well against Latvia. So, they'll have to be playing better moving forward. And I think that's, in these short tournaments, that's what you want to be doing. You want to be getting better in every game. And in terms of, individual play, I mean, it's hard to mesh all these guys together. They don't get a chance to play all that much together coming in from their respective teams. I think that they've done a pretty good job of doing that. We'll see where it goes from here. As we said, Matthews playing better. Matthews with that line with Boldy and Gensel. I felt at the get-go Boldy was going to be a really important player for this team. He had, I think, 8 shots in the game today. I think these units are coming together. We'll see what Mike Sullivan decides to do with Keller and Connor. I mean, that's the coach's decision. I mean, very glad to see Clayton Keller get in there today. I think he deserves to be playing. But they're getting better, and that's what you want in these tournaments. And now they'll just wait and see and hopefully be ready to go and get a good performance on Wednesday when they need it.
See, that's a tricky situation now with Clayton Keller and Kyle Connor, right? Because Clayton Keller came in today and was kind of quiet till the third period, a really good final 5 minutes. But, I know a lot of people are saying, why don't you try Jack Hughes there? Tage Thompson can use it there, and Jack Hughes has been playing so well. But on the flip side, why would you separate Jack Hughes and Brock Nelson right now? So these are the tough decisions. I'm curious, what would you do with that third line of Larkin, Thompson, and either Connor or Keller. It's been somewhat quiet.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because like the guy that I would be most quick to take out would probably be JT Miller. But that
He's been
said,
playing great.
they have him in a role, right? They have him in
Yeah.
a role killing penalties. Saw him block a shot late in the game. And, they feel like the coaching staff feels he is in a certain role that they need on their team. So it really comes down, as we saw today, when they look at how they structure things, to Kyle Connor or Clayton Keller. And I'm a big Keller fan. I'd like to have him in the lineup because I'd like to see him maybe get a chance with Auston Matthews. If a game is a squirrely game and you're looking for a jump, I think that he could be a player that play well with Matthews. Those guys know each other a little bit from the program, from growing up, in
I think
in
they played
Arizona.
together in Four Nations too.
Yeah. I mean, no.
Yeah,
Well, he didn't Keller didn't play in Four
No,
Nations.
I thought you meant Hughes. Sorry.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's how I see it. But, I think they feel good about where they are with their group. And again, like I said, I thought they played pretty well today, all things considered. They took advantage of, when you play Canada or you play the U.S. in this tournament, and probably some of these other teams too, but like the margin for error is so small. Germany is going to the locker room scoreless. And Eddie O brought it up on the broadcast. I think he did a great job. They win a faceoff. They failed to get it out twice. Seider, just kind of a weak play, kept it in. But then Tim Stützle has the puck on his forehand in the corner with room in front of him. Just push it ahead of you and move forward. And then if need be, chip it up the wall and out. Let's get to the locker room scoreless. Instead, it's inexplicable. And Johnny, you've played hockey at a higher level than me, certainly. I've played. I've watched, I've coached, I've scouted. Like, it's guys, it happens to the very best. And Tim Stützle is a really good player. It's just inexplicable to me. I can't explain it. Why you would try to make a pass through the defensive zone, across the zone, with under 10, 12 seconds left in a period, in a game where really you are the underdog. So, you have to be perfect against these teams. And like, that's what it's going to end up being for Team USA when they play Sweden. They play maybe Canada down the road, maybe Slovakia. We'll see how it all unfolds. But, the margin for error is so slim.
And on that play you're referring to, I think Boldy reached back, right, and got it with his stick on the play from Stützle.
Made a great play. Don't give it. Like, the guys are all great. Like,
you
these
got to
guys
make
can
that
do
play
it.
for Stützle.
Like Johnny, I know, like, I haven't ever seen you play, but I bet you if I threw a puck through there would be a chance you could knock that puck out of the air. I'm not saying you would, but like, these guys are the best of the best. Like, don't give them that opportunity. Situational hockey. Just he had room in front of him, skated ahead. As soon as you get challenged, off the wall, out of the zone, the horn goes off. You're in the locker room. You're feeling good. You're scoreless, but instead they were down 1-0, and it changed from there.
And EJ, my last one for you here. Does part of you feel bad for Leon Draisaitl with the abuse he takes from the Tkachuk brothers? I mean, that is a chef's kiss, 10 out of 10 chirp from Matthew Tkachuk. And Leon had a really, really quiet day for Germany.
Yeah. Well, listen, he's had a quiet day, right? Because every time he stepped over the boards, I'm sure Team USA was very well aware that he was on the ice and didn't give him any room to move. I mean, that's the bottom line. This isn't tennis. This is a team sport. And like you saw today, Matthews and Werenski on that goal, right? Like, Matthews makes that beautiful sauce pass across. Werenski finishes it, right?
Oh, yeah.
In Columbus, do they have anybody that can make that play or has the guts to make that play? And in Toronto, do they have a defenseman that slides in, can handle that pass and finish, right? But here, because these are the best of the best, those plays are available. So right now, Draisaitl doesn't have that kind of group with him. He's got some good players, but not he doesn't have certainly the same players that Matthew and Brady have there in Team USA. I will say this. I don't know what went on in Edmonton and Calgary when the shoes were on the other feet or the skates were on the other feet, when the Oilers were, I remember blowing the doors off the Calgary Flames in a playoff series that got a little nasty. And so maybe Leon had a lot to say then. Matthew always seems to have a lot to say. So, that's just the game now. There's a lot of talk and a lot of chirping. I guess Leon is probably used to it. And, I'm sure he's probably figures he'll have his day at some point in time.
And Matthew definitely knew the mic was there, right? He knew the broadcast would pick that one up. He knows what he's doing. He always does.
He knows everything. He's right on it.
Any final thoughts before I let you go here?
No, I mean, I just think it's. I don't love the fact that they don't reseed for the quarterfinal, and it puts Team USA in a trickier spot. I mean, here they are; they finished second overall
Yeah.
in this bracket, did really everything they could do, and now they have a real challenging game against Sweden because of the way things have worked out. I would imagine the reason they do this is because they don't want to give anybody too much of an advantage time wise.
Mhm.
Like if you had to reseed, somebody could have to play a late game and then play an early game. So this is probably why they do it. But these are the rules. This is the way it worked out. And, if Sweden does do what they're supposed to do against Latvia, it'll be a hell of a quarterfinal game. And we'll see where it goes. But this is when it gets good, Johnny. This is when it
Yeah.
gets really good.
Well, we actually did have a question because, and sorry to keep you for one more question here.
That's
Katie
okay.
Sal
That's okay.
in the live chat mentioned the teams reseeding after the quarterfinal. So that's what they're doing,
Yeah.
right? After the quarterfinal.
Yeah,
that's when it
after the
goes, like,
quarterfinal, because there's a day off, right?
Mhm.
So there's the games on Tuesday and then the games on Wednesday. And again, I'm only guessing, but I'm thinking that the reason they go to a bracket format there is because if somebody has an upset, maybe they had to play in the latest game, and then
Mhm.
the next day they play. They have to, because of the reseed, they have to play early in the day. They want to try to make that as smooth as they can and not give anybody too much of a disadvantage to have to play at a certain time. So I would imagine that's why they do it. But unfortunately, in this case, it's not great for Team USA just because of the way things unfolded in the tournament.
Yeah.
If Sweden would have won all their games, this would be different. But that's the nature of things. You play who you're supposed to play. I mean, you grew up with it, Johnny.
Yeah.
Anybody around hockey grew up with tournament play where it's goal differential, goal. I mean, all kinds of goofy tiebreakers. All you can do
The
is play the
crossover.
team in front of you.
Yep.
That's right. Exactly. That's
crossover.
all you can do.
Yeah.
That's all you can do.
Yeah. Well, EJ, thank you so much for taking the time. Hope I talk to you soon here down the road.
You got it,
And
Johnny.
Go USA.
All right. Should be fun. Should be fun. Thanks for your time, buddy.
You got it. Awesome. EJ Hradek, the best with NHL Network. Not going to waste any time by myself. Anyone who watches me and follows me knows that I hate talking to myself. So we got Keith Cavanaugh from Puckpedia. Let's bring on Keith. Big New Jersey Devils fan. Probably pumped about how well Jack Hughes is playing. So Keith, after the 5-1 win, got the nice hat on and the t-shirt to go with it. Maybe we'll get you more centered here. But what were your initial thoughts after the 3-0 record for Team USA in the preliminary round? How are you feeling right now about their chances going into the quarterfinal?
Yeah, I think you bring up a good point, right? Like you mentioned that it wasn't necessarily a breeze that USA got through, even if you look at the scores. Like they did a lot of things really well. And, I think the group play, the way that it's set up, it's mostly for seeding, right? All 12 teams technically have a chance to kind of make it to the medal round. So for me, I would have liked USA to experiment a little more with their line combinations, trying different players out. Yeah, like I think they like getting everyone into the lineup too. Like I know, Hannafin had a goal yesterday, so it's hard to take him out of the lineup. But I would have liked to see Lacombe in there. I would have liked to seen Thompson up a little higher in the lineup. He only played 9 minutes 23 seconds today of ice. I think that was like one of the lowest of USA, which is really unfortunate because he had an unbelievable goal. But I think that I would just wish there was more experimenting going on with USA. But I think overall, it's hard to really criticize a 3-0 record with a plus 11 goal differential. And like EJ was just saying, it's not our fault that we're going to have to probably play Sweden in the quarterfinals. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. I did want to ask you one question about how the format of this Olympics. Like I think the way that the women's set up is a lot more kind of advantageous for fans and for the players. And I don't know if you're familiar with how the women's is set up, but basically they have like an A pool and a B pool. So everyone in the A pool is kind of playing for seeding, and then only a couple teams in the B pool make it to the quarterfinals. So you're getting USA versus Canada in the group play, like guaranteed. So you're at least getting that matchup where now if USA gets upset by Sweden, we don't get to see USA Canada.
Yeah, but I think everyone would prefer it to have USA and Canada meet in the final, right? I think that's kind of, but you're saying not even
you could
having
have both.
a preliminary round. Yeah, you're saying the preliminary.
Exactly.
Yeah, listen, I'm not one for tournament setups. Like I'm not, that's more your cup of tea than mine, to be honest. But
these rules are so confusing, dude.
I wasn't even familiar with the men's rules, let alone the women's. Like I didn't.
Elliot Friedman's like tweeting out. He doesn't even know how to explain the tiebreakers. Like if these guys who are deep in the weeds on all this stuff can barely explain it, how are you explaining that to the casual fan?
Well, Stephen Wino actually had the breakdown. He was the one that I went to find everything. Like, he's got it right here. Canada versus the winner of Czechia and Denmark, USA versus the winner of Sweden and Latvia, Slovakia versus the winner of Germany and France, and then Finland versus the winner of Switzerland and Italy, and then it'll reseed after those matchups. So, like, it is, I guess, somewhat nice that 1 through 4 have that bye. We get the rest, USA gets the rest, and not like they necessarily need the rest, but it doesn't hurt, right? It definitely does not hurt, especially when you go play Sweden. So, the way the tournament works is definitely a little confusing to a lot of people, including myself. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I knew everything. I was scrolling Twitter just like most other people, but I'm really happy that the US and Canada are going to play when it means the most, because, I don't know if you saw the clip we had with Ryan Whitney last week where Team USA, the last couple tournaments I can think of, Four Nations, 2010, I don't think they played in 2014, but USA has won that preliminary game and then lost in the game where it matters most. So, maybe it's good that the first time they'll see each other is the game that it actually matters. But I want to go into some of the lineup stuff with you, because you are a Devils fan and you are a known Rangers hater. Has it been justified with Trocheck and JT Miller in the lineup with the PK being at 100% through 3 games? Like, I think, that's something that should justify this roster choice.
No, I liked a lot of your points when you were basically saying how JT Miller and Trocheck, while they're not they're not having the best seasons this year, and there was a lot of scrutiny whether they should be named to this roster, or Jason Robertson, Cole Caulfield, Alex DeBrincat, a couple of guys who are scoring at a much higher pace. But when you're building these rosters, the management group led by Bill Guerin has to find certain roles for players. And like you mentioned, JT Miller and Vincent Trocheck are the first guys off the bench when the penalty kill is on the ice, and they're playing at a really high level right now. The PK is at 100%, like you mentioned. And when it comes to these medal games, these high leverage situations, you're going to want to have these guys who are in these roles, who are playing at a high level, really do a good job. And so I think a lot of the lineup choices had to do with that versatility. And you're looking at some other guys on these rosters, like a guy like Matt Boldy, for example. He's a guy who had 8 shots on goal today, who's obviously an offensive dynamo, but he plays a ton of penalty minutes for Minnesota as well. And so you're looking for guys that can kind of do a lot of those different things. Like Jack Eichel's another guy who has penalty minutes this year. Auston Matthews could hop on the penalty kill if needed. So USA has a lot of players who are really versatile in that aspect. So I can see the argument for both sides as to why you might not want to have those guys. But to your point, Johnny, like, they're playing really strongly right now, and USA looks good. And like Trocheck and JT Miller know their roles. Trocheck's also really strong in the faceoff dot. He has over 56% faceoff percentage this year, one of the top guys in the NHL. So if you need an important draw in an overtime or late game situation, you put Trocheck on the ice. He can handle himself defensively as well. So I think a lot of those questions are being answered because they're playing such a strong role for USA right now.
And we could talk about lineup choices and leaving out Robertson and Caulfield and some of those guys. But ultimately, what's now starting to scare me a little bit is McDavid, Celebrini, McKinnon, Crosby, Makar. like those guys look like they are the best in the world. I'm not trying to criticize, Eichel and Matthews and our best players, our quote unquote, the guys who should be that dominant. But it's going to come down to Eichel and Matthews and Quinn Hughes and Hellebuck outplaying the top guys on Canada. And right now, I am not convinced that they can do that. Like, those guys just look like a different, like almost like a machine. Like, Canada to me has looked totally cohesive as one unit, top to bottom, in all 3 of their games. Where Team USA, it's been a couple of choppy starts and finding their game, and I don't think they've had that consistent 60-minute effort yet, and that's what scares me. I don't know if you feel the same way, because I got criticized for criticizing the last time I did a post-game show.
You get criticized for everything, though, so take it with a can of worms.
That's fair. I do. But do you not?
But I like what I like what Canada's done, though, right? Because the first game of the tournament, they started their top line with McDavid, Celebrini, Wilson. But then in the second game, they put Nathan McKinnon up there with Celebrini and McDavid. And they tried different things. Like Nick Suzuki was on their top penalty kill unit, and they took him off the penalty kill unit. So they're testing out different things. Like in these short tournaments, you really got to go with the hot hand, and you got to know who can play in these situations. And so I feel like that's just one maybe downfall of what Mike Sullivan and the coaching staff have done, is that they've really just kind of maintained maintain those top lines, right? Like Eichel with the two Tkachuk brothers, that's been consistent throughout.
Yeah.
And then you have Boldy, Gensel, Matthews, like that's been consistent without. Like you mentioned, Jack Hughes has been really strong in this tournament, and you can find the argument for both sides. Do you want to put him in the top 6 to get him more minutes? But he's also been really successful with JT Miller and Brock Nelson. You put a line like that where JT Miller's a dog in like the forecheck, and then you have Jack Hughes who can be playmaker, be dynamic on the ice, and then Brock Nelson, a guy who finds the right spots and can shoot the puck in the back of the net. And so I think there's an argument to be made for both sides, but to your point, Canada's been a well-oiled machine. It looks like there's no one going to be able to stop them. Like McDavid has 9 points in this tournament. Like US doesn't even have anyone like in the top, 10, 15 point getters of this tournament. It's going to have to be a team effort from these guys.
That's not true. I think Matthews and Brady are now
before the game.
Okay, yeah. So right now, I think it's refreshed. McDavid leads the way with 9. Then Celebrini, Slavkovsky, and Crosby are tied with 6. Then Matthews, McKinnon, Natchez, Raymond, and Matthew Tkachuk are tied with 5. So Tkachuk and Auston Matthews are tied with 5 points right now, and they're in that top 10 in point leaders. And I guess that's somewhat of a good thing that the Tkachuk brothers are in there as far as point getters go, but I feel like you'd want, Matthews and Eichel to be that much. Eichel has 4 points, I think. So Eichel, I guess for his standard has been a little quiet. Like we talk about Four Nations, Jack Hughes didn't score a goal in Four Nations. Eichel didn't score a goal in Four Nations, and neither did Auston Matthews. Like, we need these guys to score goals today. It was Matthews that did so. But I wanted to ask you, you are obviously someone who watches Jack Hughes play every single night when he is available. And would you put Jack Hughes on that line with Matthews and maybe bump down like a Jake Gensel, to that bottom line? I think Matthews definitely needs someone who can find him the puck a little bit more at 5-on-5. And I don't know if Boldy and Gensel are doing that enough.
Yeah, I mean, I know Boldy's like a really good player on that line. And like to your point, I think Jake Gensel is kind of one player for US that I've noted that like needs to get going a little bit. Like I feel like he hasn't kind of hit his full potential, and maybe a different line combination would be helpful. And so like maybe bumping up Jack Hughes to that line. But then if you put JT Miller, Nelson, and Gensel together, like is that line as good? And maybe taking advantage of the fourth line matchups with the other teams might be helpful if you keep that line together. So there's a lot of different things they can do. And like that third line today, like you mentioned, like Larkin, Thompson, and Keller, like they didn't really get going until the last period. And Dylan Larkin's a guy who I was really high on going into this tournament, and he kind of hasn't really done all that much to this point. But like to your point, like these guys are playing well, like as a team. And then so at some point, maybe one of these guys gets going and it kind of works out. But that's where you get to that experimentation part that we were talking about a little bit more, and trying different things to see if you can kind of get the most out of these lines. Like you meant, like Canada put together this crazy like defensive line of Crosby, Marner, and Stone. And you're like, that's a crazy line. But then they are scoring goals too. Stone had one today. Crosby had one today. Like they can do it all.
I said that line was a concern for me, that they were too slow and how stupid I look now. But I agree with the comment in our chat from Eric_YT. Gensel would fit with Larkin and Thompson. I couldn't agree more. Like, I think that line is what needs to have a little bit of plug and play, because Keller and Connor have both, not necessarily taken that position by storm. Like Keller, I was so pumped for Clayton Keller to be on that line, but he was a little bit disappointing tonight. And I don't know what Mike Sullivan decides to do now going into a quarterfinal game with which guy he's going to pick in that spot. Even if he doesn't, if that's to say he doesn't shake it up. Like Tage Thompson has shown, and he's not even getting much ice time. Tage Thompson again today, I think, played less than
9:23.
Yeah, back-to-back games.
He's second in the NHL
minutes.
right now in 5-on-5 goals. He's only behind Nathan McKinnon this year, and he's getting one of the lowest time on ice. And like, if you look at his time on ice distribution too, it's mostly power play minutes. So he's getting even less 5-on-5 time on ice. And it's like, this guy's proven that he can score and be efficient and to dominate at 5-on-5. I think he's the kind of guy who needs to get a little jump start and get more ice time.
Well, EJ said too before, like Keller, Matthews, Thompson, like that could even be a trio, because those three trained together in the summers in Arizona. But it's almost like, is now the time to try it?
No, you should have tried that versus Latvia. You should have tried that
versus
versus Denmark. Like, why do we not try different line combinations throughout this tournament? Just because you assume when you go into these tournaments that these are going to be the line combos, like that's never really how it works out. If you watch any of these tournaments, there's injuries, there's players who don't get going, there's certain players who play well together. So there's got to be a lot of experimentation in these group stage games, especially when it's set up where the seeding matters, but like not really. Like if we got the 5th seed here, we actually might have had a little easier path. I mean, I know we would have probably played Canada in the semifinals, but they're just
Yeah.
like, you can't really dictate based off how you finish. Like, you have to really try things and play your game.
So let me ask you this: who's been, I asked, I think after the first game, who's been a little bit too quiet for you, and who's someone that's exceeded your expectations so far?
Ooh, good question. I think Zach Werenski is the kind of guy who exceeded my expectations. I mean, he's a guy who I think, no offense to your guy, Adam Fox, but I think Zach Werenski is now a guy who's a clear, like, third best defenseman in the NHL behind Cale Makar and Quinn
I would agree.
Hughes. And I think he's only kind of exceeded expectations. Like, he's been placed in a good spot on this Team USA roster. I think he's played some time with Faber. He's played some time. He's done a good job. And I think he's a guy who, when you have McAvoy and Quinn Hughes on that top pair, you need a guy who can drive offense on that second pair, and he's going to play your second power play unit. And the second power play unit actually had a lot of good chances today relative to the first power play unit, at least earlier in the game. And so I think he's a guy that's kind of exceeded my expectations. And then to your point, I think, Dylan Larkin's a guy who I really had high hopes for in this tournament. He's playing really, really well with Detroit this season. He's over a point per game kind of player. He's leading that team to the playoffs right now, a team that not a lot of people maybe thought would make the playoffs at the beginning of the season. And I feel like he hasn't necessarily taken that next step. But it's also maybe because, like, Auston Matthews has kind of really upped his game to the point where people wanted Dylan Larkin as the 2C over Matthews.
Yeah.
And now it's like, that probably isn't smart. Like, Auston Matthews looks awesome out there, and I'm really happy that he's starting to get going, because that's a big piece to USA dominating in these tournaments, is to really have that 2C, between him and Eichel really going. But I think Larkin maybe needs to get going, but also it might be because of the line mates he's playing with, and just the styles of play might not mesh with how he plays. And so I think that's where you have so many players to kind of try and test things with. There's a lot of players on this team too that are versatile, that can play both center and wing. You look at, like, that fourth line, right? All three guys are centers between Brock Nelson, Jack Hughes, and JT Miller. Like, maybe you try some of those guys in different positions.
I'm looking up the Four Nations lines right now. I don't know if you remember them by heart.
But it was the same first line, and then the second line was
Eichel,
just swap Eichel for swap Boldy for Hughes, because it was Hughes, Matthews, Gensel.
Matthews. Okay.
And then Larkin was with Connor, and I don't remember who their winger was. It could have been Boldy. It probably was Boldy.
I think it was Boldy, because we're getting some comments in the chat about Larkin and Boldy together. But a lot of people. Oh, sorry, Nelson, Trocheck, and
Kreider.
Kreider sat, I think.
He played a game or two, but Miller was also on the team.
Kreider played the Sweden game. I'm trying to remember who played in the championship game.
Well, you know what stinks about these, like, tournaments too, is like, it's like when you go to your normal sites to get all your stats, like the Nat Stat Tricks or the Money Pucks, like, you can't go to these sites to get, like, the advanced stats and look at the line combos and see who's outscoring and outchancing their opponents. You're basically relying on, like, the Olympic website, which is kind of brutal.
Well, I will say Sportlogic does have the post-game stats, but it's not live as it's happening like it is in the NHL. Like, after, during the game, you can check Sportlogic and it's updating, like, as the game is going. But they have it post-game. If someone in the chat can tell us who that other fourth line player was.
Normies don't have access to Sportlogic too, by the way.
Yeah, I know. I was just, I guess, bragging there. So I guess my final question for you, actually, I'll just address some comments about Clayton Keller. Like, yes, I know it was Clayton Keller's first game of the tournament. Obviously, a lot of us had wished he played in the game yesterday after Kyle Connor was quiet. But again, like, these tournaments are quick. You don't have a lot of time to let a guy ease in. So, you need to figure out which guy is going to be more comfortable playing against a really good team in Sweden, assuming they beat Latvia, and then you go from there. But, saying Keller, it was only his first game, he'll get going. Like, U.S. could be down 2-0 after the first period against Sweden. And then, then what? Like, you're punched in the mouth. You got to figure out a way to come back, or else your tournament's done. So I don't know if you have a comment there, but I just did want to ask you to put your GM hat on maybe and make a lineup for the next game in the quarterfinal if you had any switches specifically.
Yeah, like, my thinking is that, like, Kyle Connor's, like, a good player, right? Like, he wouldn't have been picked on this team if he wasn't a good player. And I know he didn't really show up in the Four Nations or the first couple games here, but, like, there has to be a way to activate that kind of player, because he does a really good job in Winnipeg. Winnipeg's not that good this year. He's over a point per game. He just signed a big 8 times $12 million a year ticket. So he wouldn't be getting all that money if he wasn't a valuable player. So I think the USA management group has to find a way to unlock that kind of player, because I don't think it's necessarily fully on him. Like, he's a good player. But
it's been Four Nations. It's been now a couple games here. Like, maybe, like, what else can you try,
Yeah,
Like
I know what you're
he's
saying.
not taking anyone's spot on the power play.
No.
That's just the reality when there's too many good players around. It's tough.
And that's when you get to the argument and like Bill Guerin, like building a roster for roles, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't
Yeah.
take if you take a Cole Caulfield and a Jason Robertson, guys who are used to getting power play 1 and top 6 minutes, if you're putting them in a bottom 6 role and you're expecting them to not get any power play time and even play a little penalty kill, like that's just going to throw the balance out of whack. And when you're trying to defend the power play 1 of Cale Makar, Nathan McKinnon, Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, Sam Reinhart, you need dogs like JT Miller and Vincent Trocheck to kind of get in there. And the decor is awesome. Like pretty much all these decor can play on the penalty kill, except for maybe Quinn Hughes. And so I think you're in a good spot there to really defend against it. But I mean, for me, like when we're going,
I would say
Sweden,
Quinn can PK, but like there's no reason to put him out there right now. Like save him a little bit,
Exactly. And like, all right, so we're gonna probably play Sweden on Wednesday in the quarterfinal game. So like, look at
what time that would be? Any chance?
I don't think the times are like set. I think it's like after the big playoff games. But to me, it's like thinking about how Sweden's going to line up. Like they have a really strong decor. What they're doing too with their 13th forward is bizarre to me. Like Philip Forsberg was the extra forward the first 2 games, and then Jesper Bratt was the extra forward last game. And to me, like they're probably their top 4, top 5 wingers on Sweden. So I don't know what's going on there, but to me, I think you kind of keep the lineup pretty similar. I think Hellebuck has for sure solidified himself as the number 1, which is great to see, because going into this tournament, we weren't really sure. And obviously Swayman played okay yesterday. He had a couple, questionable goals, and it was good to see Ottinger at least back up today. I'm glad that they made that decision, but I think you're locked into net with Hellebuck. I think your top forwards are going to be the same guys. Like, I don't think you're going to really change too much. If anything, you maybe just swap back Keller out for Connor and see what happens, but I don't think you can go wrong either way. I don't think there's a correct decision. And unfortunately for Lacombe, I don't think he's going to get into the fold. I think this decor is pretty much rolling. Hannafin's even getting like 11 minutes a game too. So it's not like he's really the extra. Like USA is finding a way to get all 7 defensemen in there. So I think you kind of roll with what's been working and you hope for the best.
Yeah, and I want to just take this comment from the chat. Gorgeous George 5173. I don't know necessarily what the comment he is addressing. He said, "Don't disagree, but besides Tage, I'm not seeing some all-star team. But give credit to Brady Gooney. Dude shows passion. Like Brady Tkachuk has probably been the most consistent player through 3 games. When the team needed someone to show up and forecheck, he was there. He was all over Draisaitl today. Brady, I think, to me, has been somewhat of a surprise, like with his offensive production. Like I don't think his energy is a surprise, but the fact that he's tied for the lead in points right now on this team, I would say most people wouldn't have expected that.
But he's the kind of guy, Johnny, who just he goes off in these best on best kind of tournaments. He did the same thing in the 4 Nations. He got the first goal, I think, for US in the game against both Canada and I think the opener against Finland. And so Brady's the kind of guy who really just worked hard on his sleeve, and he goes above and beyond in these kinds of tournaments. And I was listening to you with EJ earlier. You said you would have McAvoy as the captain. I honestly think I would have done Brady. Like I think Brady is just the heart and soul and the engine of this team, and how he goes is how the rest of the team goes.
Yes and no. Well, I'm not like disagreeing with what you said about Brady, but like when it comes to the captaincy, I just feel like Charlie can do almost everything. Like Charlie can play power play, he can kill, he'll eat pucks. Like, I think he made the play of that game against Canada last year where he threw the hit at McDavid, and then I think it was Gensel came down and scored. Like Charlie's not as loud as Brady is, and sometimes maybe Brady can like do things that are a bit of a distraction. Like Charlie's maybe just like a more reserved, lead by example. And I'm not saying Brady's not that. He's just more like
I kind of get what you're saying.
Performative, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Where like you don't necessarily want to put all the focus on a guy like I don't know, like you're not going wrong either way, right? Like that's the beauty of these tournaments. Like there's so many leaders on every team, and Vic did just inform me that USA is at 310 on Wednesday, confirmed.
Okay.
So not sure. Obviously, we have to wait and see if they play Sweden or Latvia, but
that's probably the last game I would imagine that day
at 310. That is the last game. Yeah. So 6 a.m., 10:30, 12, and 3. What a day of hockey that is going to be, kind of like March Madness.
You know what's nice about this tournament? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, what's nice? Like everyone was concerned about the ice going in. Like I haven't heard one single complaint about the ice at all during this tournament.
You didn't listen to Colby then on Monday. He was talking. Well, you can kind of tell it. Well, he's a defenseman, right? So I think when you play a certain position, you can kind of see how those guys play and maybe how your brain would be affected by it. The corners, and I saw it a little bit too after Colby mentioned it. I didn't see it at first, but the corners are like a little more tight, and if you've ever, not that you have, but a rink that we always like to talk about, Merrimack is known in Hockey East as a smaller sized rink. And like when you're warming up in the, before the game, when you warm up, you step out, you take a shot, you curl to the corner, you come back, you shoot, curl to the corner. When you curl in those corners and warm up, you feel like the boards come up on you quick. And he's kind of saying, like, when you go D to D and you're in certain spots supporting your partner, that all of a sudden you find yourself closer to the boards because the corners are just a little bit pushed up. So like that's something he noticed, but I haven't like really seen any complaints from players.
That's what I more mean. Like the players aren't complaining about it, and like the nuance you're pointing out is like the advanced, like super, focused hockey fan, whereas like the casual fan is like not even picked up on that whatsoever.
That's not 5 tall boys in Keith Cavanaugh wearing a Jack Hughes jersey. That's not a thing you're noticing. But any final thoughts here before we let you go? Obviously, it's great to have you on here and great to talk to you, and maybe plug where people can find you if you're doing any more content throughout the Olympics as well.
Yeah, you can find me at Keith Cav Jr. on Twitter and Instagram. I'm doing Puckpedia content, so at Puckpedia, I'm sure you guys know, puckpedia.com, best hockey transaction salary cap website in the game. We're having Chris Pronger on our show this week, so
awesome.
Excited to get Olympic gold medalist Chris Pronger on, get his take as we go into the medal round. No, I think this tournament has just been exactly what we wanted. We're seeing USA and Canada dominate, right? Both 3-0, both all 3 regulation wins, both plus, double-digit goal differential. And we're on a collision course for what we all want, which is Sunday morning, 8 a.m. next week, Canada versus USA gold medal match. So I think as long as we get to that point, this tournament's going to be a success for everyone involved. And USA has to take care of business. Sweden is going to be no joke. As a Devils fan, hopefully we get Jacob Markstrom in the net for Sweden. He let in a couple softies the other night, but Sweden's a really good team. They're going to be a tough out for US, and then whoever they end up placing in the semifinals, whether that be Finland or one of Czechia, Slovakia, Denmark, Switzerland, it's not going to be easy tests, and USA has to keep their head down and focus. But I think they're playing a really good brand of hockey right now. It's different than Canada's brand, but we'll see how it plays out if they end up meeting in the final.
Last question for you, and it's kind of a cheesy, I don't know. You can make fun of me for this question because it's only been 3 games, but if you're picking an MVP right now for Team USA, who is it?
Ooh, if I'm picking an MVP right now, to your point, like I'm probably picking Brady Tkachuk just because you mentioned like he's the guy who's leading the team in points right now, who no one expected to lead the team in points. He's not a guy who's like, an offensive dynamo, but he's a guy who plays a hard brand of hockey. And like in this tournament, like he's doing exactly what you need him to do. He's on a line with his brother and he's just living the best life right now. They're chirping Leon Draisaitl, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Like it's just been awesome to watch them together. And the fact that the microphone got that too was just incredible, like on the broadcast. But no, I think Brady's been awesome. And I think like you can go a bunch of different ways with this. Like I think Tage Thompson's been awesome, but I don't think he has enough ice yet to be, in the MVP consideration. If Connor Hellebuck has a shutout in the gold medal game, like you're going to probably pick him to be the MVP. But through these 3 games,
4 games from now.
You're right. I know. Through these 3 games, I'm probably picking Brady. And I think you can go a couple different ways. Like Matthews has been awesome too. So, but Brady's been great. And I think he's hopefully leads the charge the rest of the way.
All right. I agree, Keith. Great stuff. Thanks for coming on today. Really appreciate it. And I'm sure we'll get you back on here if USA continues to roll through the medal rounds. So thanks, everyone, for listening. Thank you to the people involved in the chat. Big thank you to Keith, EJ Hradek, and our producer, Vic. And we'll talk to you after Wednesday's game. What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to Morning Cup of Hockey here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube channel. If you enjoyed the show, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. And don't forget, we've got more great hockey content every day. You can catch DFO live at noon and stick around for the Sheet with Jeff Marek at 1 p.m. right here on Daily Faceoff. Until then, keep your coffee hot and your takes hotter.